Hello, this is Joe Neville, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to set up an Ansible and Vagrant environment, which is a great way to learn Ansible. Now over on the left we have the default setup for Vagrant, which has the Vagrant host and the Vagrant box, and what you do is there's no emulated network or anything. What you do is you use port forwarding to get from the host onto the box. Now over on the right is what I'm going to set up. Now the reason for this is that at this time the Ansible control machine function, so the device that runs the Ansible playbooks, that's not supported on Windows that I want to run as my host. So to get over this, what I thought I would do is create an Ubuntu VM and install Ansible on that, and then connect that to my Vagrant boxes that would be connected to this host only network. Now this revealed a problem with the default setup of Vagrant with the SSH keys, which I'm going to show you how to fix in this network. Now the problem is that, as you can see over on the left again, you've got the host into the boxes. So what we have for our public and private key setup, we just have a private key on the host and the public key on the box. What you don't have is you don't have a private key on the box, so you can't go from box to box. And obviously what that means is that the default setup is for my Wins host to be able to control my Vagrant boxes as the host for Vagrant rather than my VM. So what I need to do is to get my private key off of the Windows host and put it onto the Ubuntu VM. Now there's a few extra steps to this which I've covered in my blog. And let's jump into the Vagrant configuration now then, so I can show you some of the steps. Here's my Vagrant file that I'm going to be running. I've got two, UB1 and UB2, so it's just a repeat essentially with different IP addresses. I am going to fire up, it's an Ubuntu, this is Xenial, so it's 16.04. Now this is an important point here to make life easier for yourself. Vagrant starts off with an insecure SSH key, and then it will use that when the Vagrant box fires up. It creates another private SSH key, which is much more secure. Now, this is all just in the lab for learning Ansible, so I don't actually care about that. So what I do is I use the original insecure private key, and I'm going to put that on my Ubuntu VM. Okay, so to create that behavior, what I have to do is do this insert key false. Okay, now the next part is the private network. So it's a 192.168.50.101 for my UB1/24. Now this shell command is just to provision it, so I do an update, an upgrade, add in Ansible, do another update, and install Ansible there. So you get one of the relatively new versions of Ansible, and it's the same again for UB2. So that key that I mentioned, when you do the install of Vagrant onto Windows, I found it here. So it's under my user. The user is Joe, and it's in the .vagrant.d folder, and there you can see the insecure private key. So that's what I need to copy across to my Ubuntu VM. Let's fire up these Vagrant boxes then in the background while I carry on explaining what's going on. We'll go off and create the two machines for me. Right, so this is the VM that I've created. I will show you the settings on that. So for the provisioner, I'm using VirtualBox. Here's the network, the specific one for connecting to Vagrant, the private network. So if you look, where is it? Here, this command in Vagrant, so it will be config.vm if you're using the default. It is the vm.network. That private network, that actually manifests itself as a host-only network on VirtualBox there. Okay, so it's a host-only Ethernet adapter. You may have Ethernet adapter number 1 for that. Okay, good. So this is my VM. Let's log in there. Now, what I did is I have I used secure FTP to copy the private key across, and I put it in the .ssh directory there, so you can see the key. And an important point is that when you copy it across, the permissions for the key will be public. So I think it is, by default, it's a 700, which SSH will complain about when you go to try to use it as your private key for your SSH connection. So you need to change it to 600, so that will make it a private key. So you do it chmod 600 and then your insecure private key. And the final piece of the puzzle is the Ansible Dot Cfg file, which I've got in my playbooks directory of the VM. Here's the relevant commands that I've changed from the default. So to log into the Vagrant boxes using Ansible, you have to use by default, you have to use the remote_user will be Vagrant. Then I'm pointed to that private key file that I've copied across. So .ssh is where I've stored it. That's the Vagrant insecure private key. And then finally, this one is useful if you're blowing away Vagrant boxes and instantiating new ones, because it doesn't do the host key checking for SSH, so it doesn't warn you about the SSH keys changing in your known hosts. I've skipped ahead and Vagrant has now finished booting up my boxes. Vagrant status shows me that I've got UB1 and UB2 up and running. SSH on to UB1, and you can see there the 192.168.50.101. Now I jump over to my Ubuntu VM as my Ansible control machine. I'll just show you the IP address. There you go, 192.168.50.3. So that's the interface that we're going to communicate with the Vagrant boxes on. Remember, they are .101 and 102. So I'm in my playbook directory here. I'll show you what I've got. I've got the host file. See, excuse me. I've got the host file there, and it shows I've called them web servers, but what we will do is just a simple, we'll just use all, and we will ping those. Fingers crossed this will work. Well, there was a slight pause there, took about 5 seconds to come through, but we do have 2 pongs for our pings, one from 101 and one from 102. So that is an Ubuntu VM using the insecure private key from Vagrant to manage 2 Vagrant boxes. There's quite a bit there. I've written it all up in my blog, nullzero.co.uk. But that's all for now. My name's Joe Neville. Thanks for watching and goodbye.